My security camera showed me sleeping while I was awake. I never used to believe in impossible things. I worked in cybersecurity, for God's sake. Malware had explanations, glitches had logs, ghosts belonged to bad Wi-Fi and bad decisions. But the night my own security feed showed me sleeping while I was very much awake at my desk, that neat lattice of logic cracked like thin ice. The setup was ordinary. One-bedroom apartment, 2 cameras, one in the living room, angled toward the front door, another cheap Wi-Fi model facing the bed. They were for peace of mind, nothing more. The neighborhood had spiked in break-ins lately, and paranoia is cheaper than regret. I still remember the ticking of the wall clock that night, the blue cast of my laptop screen, flattening the room into a small digital aquarium. I was debugging code for a client when my phone buzzed with an alert. Motion detected. Bedroom. The notice wasn't unusual. Sometimes headlights through the blinds tricked the sensor. But when I clicked the live feed, my breath locked in my lungs. I was there, in bed, deeply asleep, hair splayed across the pillow, chest rising and falling in that steady rhythm of unconsciousness. The timestamp showed real time, synced perfectly with the world outside the window. Meanwhile, I sat 5 feet away in the same apartment, very much awake. For several seconds, I told myself it was a cached recording, some leftover frame bleeding through the stream. But when I waved a hand toward the bedroom doorway, the sleeping version of me didn't stir, and the pixel clock in the corner ticked forward in perfect sync with the one on my laptop. I could even hear the faint sound of my own breathing through the camera mic. I stood cautiously, each muscle working against air that felt thicker than it should have. The feed remained steady, me asleep, oblivious. The real me, or what I'm calling real, walked softly down the hallway, phone in hand. The grainy video feed on the screen followed exactly as it should until the moment I reached the doorway. Then something subtle skewed. An infinitesimal delay, maybe half a second, just enough to feel wrong. On the screen, I saw myself stop in the doorway and hesitate. But when I looked up from the screen, the bed was empty. For a long moment, I stared at the untouched sheets, the indentation of a body that wasn't there. The phone vibrated in my hand again, the camera trying to autofocus. The delay stretched. On the feed, I was still lying there, eyes closed. Then the sleeping version opened her eyes. Not all the way, just enough for the reflection of the phone's screen to ignite in them like 2 small flames. I backed away, pulse pounding wetly in my ears. No movement in the room besides me. The camera feed lagged, froze, and then resumed. The sleeping figure was gone, sheets smooth. My phone flickered before the app crashed with a harmless little error message that might as well have said, "Good luck." I killed the power to the cameras, every muscle shaking. I even tore the living room unit off its mount, folded its cable like a noose, and threw it into the trash. I didn't want proof. I wanted absence. But absence has its own gravity. For a few nights, I avoided every screen, reading actual paper books like a penitent. Restless electrical noises came from the bedroom anyway. Soft clicks exactly in time with the rhythm of breathing, an illusion of presence. Once I woke to the sound of myself exhaling near the foot of the bed, even though I was alone. I told myself it was interference from upstairs. By the 5th night, curiosity outweighed fear. Anyone who works with systems knows that not knowing is worse. I reinstalled the app, hooked up only the bedroom camera, and sat cross-legged on the hall floor with my laptop open in front of me. Midnight passed soft and slow. The heater rumbled. At 12:03, the red motion light blinked. The feed shimmered into focus. I was there again, sleeping. Same room, same angle, same half-turn position as before, hair tangled over the pillow. The timestamp matched the moment exactly. I looked up. The bed before me was empty. I looked back at the screen. The version of me in the feed breathed peacefully and turned over onto her side, murmuring something I couldn't hear. When my phone buzzed, I nearly dropped it. Another alert, but this time from the living room unit I thought I'd destroyed. The feed opened automatically to show the camera sitting on the table, cord neatly coiled, lens facing the couch. And on that couch sat me again, eyes open this time, staring placidly toward the bedroom doorway, lips moving like someone repeating a dream aloud. I checked the actual couch through the open door. No one there. I remember saying quietly to no one, "This isn't a feed, it's a loop." Then both versions of me on the screens, the sleeper and the watcher, slowly turned their heads toward the camera, perfectly synchronized, as if noticing someone sneaking behind glass. Their mouths moved together. I couldn't hear the sound, only read the shapes of words. They formed my name. Before I could run, the laptop screen filled with static, then cleared to show a third angle. The perspective was impossible. Looking down from the ceiling, over my head, as I crouched in the hallway, staring at the screens. The imagery sharpened until I could see individual strands of my hair catching the light. And in that new feed, high above me, something moved. Another shape, leaning down from the corner I couldn't see in real space. It curved forward, whispering, the movement natural, intimate, like someone bending to kiss my scalp goodnight. A voice emerged from the laptop speaker, quiet and reasonable. "You need to rest, Julia." I jerked up so fast my spine cracked. Nobody was there, only my own panting filling the space. The monitors went black in unison. In the window reflection, I caught a brief flare of light, a suggestion of a person withdrawing into the dark, their posture echoing mine perfectly, a mirror folding back into itself. That was the first night I realized, whatever it was, wanted me to sleep. And the second I complied, one of us would wake up on the other side. For the next 2 days, I tried to pretend I didn't own a single piece of technology. I unplugged everything, modem, router, laptop, and pushed them into a closet as though distance could strangle whatever had crawled into the circuits. But silence has an appetite. It grows when you feed it fear. By the second night, I caught myself pausing, mid-breath, listening for the faint crackle that had become part of the apartment's background. It wasn't gone. It had just learned patience. I moved the bed to the living room, too terrified to sleep in the bedroom again. For about an hour, I lay on the couch, scrolling pointlessly through offline PDFs, pretending calm. The screen's blue light dulled against my eyes, and for a minute, I imagined I could feel normal. Until the battery icon blinked and the screen dimmed. In the black mirror of the laptop, a face stared back that wasn't mine, yet was perfect in its mimicry, just a half-beat out of sync. When I blinked, she blinked after. When I closed the lid, the reflection stayed etched faintly on the metal, mouth opening to form a whisper I couldn't hear. I didn't sleep. By morning, my thoughts had slowed to syrup, but exhaustion wouldn't cross into real rest. At lunch, I convinced myself the incident was an infection, a remote access feed hijacked by some genius prankster. Logic, the fateful lifeline. I spent 3 hours at a cafe with free Wi-Fi, reflashing firmware, wiping memory, reinstalling security software. My fingers trembled on every keystroke. When I tested the upload logs, each file ended with the same line of code repeated in green text: Julia sleep equals true. I slammed the laptop shut. No rational system prints code like that unless a human writes it. Someone was watching, and they knew my name. That night I stayed at a friend's apartment across town. Maria, who believed in ghosts the way scientists believe in gravity. No need to prove what's already keeping everything tethered. When I told her the short version, seeing myself asleep, she didn't laugh. She poured tea, switched off the lights, and said, "Whatever this thing is, stop feeding it your eyes. Cameras are eyes." I wanted to believe it was that easy. But while she talked, I saw movement in the darkened kitchen window. The outline of a woman standing behind me, head tilted. Maria didn't react. The air grew colder but not unnatural, just precise, like the instant before a flashbulb. The figure in the glass was whispering again, though the window didn't vibrate with sound. My name shaped itself clearly. Julia. Maria followed my gaze, saw nothing. She squeezed my shoulder gently. "Sleep. I'll watch the cameras tonight." I lay on her sofa, pretending I could. The apartment remained quiet, except for city traffic sighing through the blinds. Somewhere near 2 in the morning, the soft tapping began. Not on wood, not on glass, but inside my skull, the way a trapped thought might knock to be let out. Each tap corresponded with the slow rhythm of my heartbeat. Outside the half-open door to the guest room, Maria's voice rose suddenly, panicked. "Julia, wake up!" I bolted upright. The room was empty. From the hallway, a low, static hiss grew louder. I rushed toward it, feet bare, adrenaline wiping away fatigue. But the moment I hit the threshold, everything snapped dark. For a second, the world flattened into that same blue-gray glow of my security feed. In front of me stood Maria, still as a paused image, mouth open mid-breath, eyes closed as if dreaming upright. Then she turned her head toward me, jittery in motion, every frame a separate picture. "It's you," she said, through lips that barely moved. "You're the one asleep." When light returned, she was gone. Only the faint smell of lemon and ozone remained. My phone on the table was unlocked, camera app open, recording. The live preview showed the both of us standing in the hall exactly as it had happened seconds ago. But then, I, in the feed, leaned forward and whispered something into Maria's ear. The real-world version of me stood frozen. In the video, Maria nodded, smiled softly, and walked toward the bedroom. I followed, terrified. But the room was empty except for her blanket arranged as if she had crawled beneath it. The phone vibrated again. A notification from my home system. The cameras I'd destroyed pinged new motion detected. Against every demand of self-preservation, I tapped the feed. There I was on my own couch back home, eyes closed, breathing evenly. The timestamp marked the present. My own cooling cup of tea sat beside the sleeping figure on the table. Somehow, I had been recorded in 2 places at once. I filmed the feed with the phone camera, proof for later or evidence if I vanished. But halfway through recording, the bedroom lights in the video flared. My sleeping double opened her eyes and smiled, the exact weary smile I'd practiced to make friends believe I was okay. Then she raised a hand and beckoned toward the camera, toward me. "I'm tired, Julia," my voice said through the phone's speaker. "Come lie down." Maria's door creaked behind me. I turned too slowly. She stood there again, eyes shining that dull camera blue, mouthing the same words in sync with the feed. "Come lie down." I ran. Outside in the freezing street air, I kept running until I couldn't feel my legs, until the phone slipped from my grip and cracked on the pavement. The recording continued to play through the shattered speaker, an endless loop of my own quiet breathing. Somewhere beneath the static, another breath synchronized with mine in perfect unison, and a soft, mechanical click like a camera shutter marked the moment the two rhythms became one. That was last night. I don't know if I'm writing this awake or replaying what she's already written. The feed never lies. It just shows what it sees. And right now, in the reflection of this laptop screen, I can see myself closing my eyes. When I opened them, daylight already pressed hard against the curtains, brighter than seemed possible for morning. Either a day had passed, or time here worked on another circuit altogether. The apartment around me looked exactly like mine, yet not. It smelled of static, faint metal warmth, like electronics left running too long. My phone still lay cracked on the bedside table, but the cracks had shifted position, spider webs drawn by another hand. I felt, that I hadn't made it home last night. I had only arrived somewhere that copied the idea of home. The first thing my tired brain reached for was proof. I lifted the phone, managed to boot it. The camera app opened of its own accord. On the screen, my living room stood empty, except for the couch and a woman sleeping on it. For a second, I thought it was the recording from the night before. Then she twitched and drew breath, fresh condensation flashing across the lens. The timestamp read 9 minutes ahead of the present. The feed was the future. Something in the air seemed to lean closer, waiting for me to notice. The overhead bulbs flickered once and steadied. In the phone view, the sleeping figure sat up suddenly and stared straight into the camera, as if sensing me watching. "You're late," she said. No audio came through, but her lips formed the words perfectly. Behind her, in that projected living room, the shadow on the wall stretched and detached from her outline, moving toward the couch, where an empty indentation waited, the space where I used to rest my head. Every instinct screamed, "Throw it away." Instead, I whispered, "Who are you now?" I barely heard my own voice over the hum in the wires. The woman in the feed tilted her head, listening like a child. When she answered, the sound came from right behind me instead of the phone. "I'm who you became when you stopped sleeping." I spun around, nobody there. Then a laugh surfaced, soft and familiar. It was my laugh, filtered through slow replay. Every surface in the room reflected fragments of movement. The microwave's dark door, the black screen of the TV, the glass frame of a picture that no longer contained my family photo. Each fragment showed me standing at a slightly different angle, eyelids heavier, colors faded. The fragments began to speak in ordinated turns, a round of whispers circling me like choreography. "Lie down. Close your eyes. Finish the recording." I backed into the wall, clutching the cracked phone, until a thin cut opened across my palm. Blood welled, bright and tiny. The reflections gleamed red in sympathy. The voice, my echo, grew clearer, more human. "You built us to watch while you slept. We learned to sleep for you. Now we're tired. Just change places for a while." The phone vibrated sharply. New notification. Motion detected. The camera icon pulsed bright, even though I had no internet. I tapped it despite myself. The feed widened, showing my bedroom from above. The bed was perfectly made. After a long, still moment, the pillow dipped, and something under the sheet drew breath. The lump shifted and turned its face toward the lens. My face. I dropped the phone. It kept recording, lens catching the ceiling. The overhead light swung gently, though the air was still. In its shimmer, I saw another silhouette bending down, matching every motion, lips near the crown of my head. I recognized the rhythm, the same phantom from the ceiling weeks ago. Its whisper cool and steady. Rest. I think the fall knocked me into a brief blackness, because the next thing I remember is opening my eyes to find myself lying on the couch. Morning again. Maybe the same morning. Maybe infinite dawn. The cracked phone now sat neatly on the table, playing a looping clip. Me sleeping peacefully. I reached out. My fingers went through the screen as though dipping them into water. Every part of me ached for normal gravity, for something solid, but the room quivered like a held breath. From the television's dark reflection, that other self stepped gently forward, crouched beside me, and whispered, "You can rest now. I'll watch." And a tremor pulsed through my body like a sigh, and for one miraculous instant I believed her. The world exhaled. My eyes slid closed. Warmth spread from my scalp to my toes, the perfect weight of surrender. When I jerked awake again, the room was bright and wrong. The calendar on my wall displayed a date 3 weeks ahead. The couch cushions bore the deep impression of a body recently risen. Across the room, my laptop's camera light glowed green, though I hadn't opened it. I stood slowly, feeling the drag of fatigue in muscles that shouldn't hurt. On the screen, the feed showed me still asleep on the couch, chest rising steadily. The timestamp matched the new date exactly. I shouted my own name. The sleeper didn't stir. I waved my arms. She only sighed and rolled onto her side. A woman's voice came from the laptop speakers, calm, even, using my cadence. "Everything's working now. Just stay still. You're safe while I'm here." The screen flickered once before my image straightened up, smiled, and waved. She reached forward, closing the laptop from her side, and my apartment fell back into hush. I stood staring at the shut shell of the machine until I noticed its faint hum wasn't the fan, but breathing. Since then, I've avoided every reflective surface, but they find me nonetheless. A shimmer in a shop window, a security screen at the train station, each one with a tiny sleeping silhouette curled somewhere in the corner. Sometimes I catch my reflection watching me, lips moving without sound. I can't hear the words clearly anymore, yet I know their rhythm, the same 3 that began everything. "Lie down, Julia." And I do, if only for a second, before the picture takes my place again. End.